Meneer die Visiekanselier, ek het die eer om aan u voor te stel Wieland Gevers met die versoek aan hom die graad dokter in die natuurwetenskappe honoris causa te verleen. Die Raad en die Senaat het op grond van die volgende oorwegings besluit om aan hom hierdie graad te verleen. Wieland Gevers has displayed a lifelong quest for building, developing and enhancing South Africa's research capacity. His contributions fulfill and support Stellenbosch University's vision as a research-driven institution focused on being an active role player in the development of the South African society. Dames en heren, Wieland Gevers is in 1937 op Pieter Tief gebore, kwalifiseer as 'n dokter met eerste klas lof aan die Universiteit van Kaapstad in 1960 en behaal sy Rhodes beurshouer in doktorsgraad aan Oxford onder die toesig van Nobelpryswenner Sir Hans Krebs. Voor sy terugkeer na Suid-Afrika in 1970 werk hy na doktoraal vir 4 jaar onder nog 'n Nobelpryswenner, Dr. Fritz Lipman by die Rockefeller Universiteit in New York. As departementshoof van geneeskundige biochemie by die Universiteit van Stellenbosch tot 1977 was hy direkteur van 'n eenheid van die Mediese Navorsingsraad. Daarna lei hy 2 sulke eenhede vir 15 jaar by die Universiteit Kaapstad, waar hy later die universiteit sy senior adjunk visiekanselier was. Na sy aftrede was hy tot 2005 tydelik die stigter-direkteur van Instituut vir Aansteeklike Siektes en Molekulêre Geneeskunde by die universiteit. Professor Gevers was chairperson of the Education Committee of the South African Universities Vice-Chancellor Association. He represented all South African universities on the South African Qualifications Authority during 1996 to 2002, and he was founder-president of the South African Biochemical Society, president of the Royal Society of South Africa, and served the Academy of Science of South Africa as president, executive officer, and general secretary, as well as the chair of the Committee on Scholarly Publication. He is a fellow of the Academy of Sciences of the Developing World and has been deputy chair of the National Ministerial Review Committee on South Africa's Science, Technology, and Innovation Landscape. He founded what is now called the Cape Higher Education Consortium in 1991, helped establish the regional library system, Calico, in 1995, convened the consensus panels that comprehensively reviewed scholarly publishing in and from South Africa in journals in 2006 and books in 2009. He also chairs the Committee on Scholarly Publishing of the Academy of Science of South Africa, convenes the National Scholarly Editors Forum, as well as the National Scholarly Book Publishers Forum, organized by the Academy. Professor Gevers het reeds plaaslik en internasionale erkenning gekry vir sy uitnemende werk, onder meer 2 eredoktorsgrade, die National Science and Technology Forum se toekenning met die titel Achievement as an Individual Over a Lifetime, ook goue medaljes van die Academy of Science of South Africa, Welcome, die Mediese Navorsingsraad, die Suid-Afrikaanse Vereniging vir Biologie en Molekulêre Biologie. Die Suid-Afrikaanse staatspresident het ook die orde van Mapungubwe klas silwer aan Professor Gevers toegeken. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, I hereby request you to confer the degree Doctor of Science honoris causa on Professor Wieland Gevers for his truly outstanding contribution to the promotion and advancement of science and the development of research capacity in South Africa, and for his sound leadership in the establishment and direction of numerous academic and scientific management structures.
Wieland Gevers, ek verleen aan u die graad dokter in natuurwetenskappe honoris causa. Baie geluk. Omdraai.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, honoured guests, a good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination. These are the words of our revered former President, Mr. Nelson Mandela. Professor Wieland Gevers is someone who epitomizes this wonderful combination of qualities in a very unmistakable manner. Time today does not allow us to present a comprehensive account of all his many achievements, but I hope that you will allow me just to offer a few examples that illustrate the winning combination of head and heart that is Wieland Gevers. Wieland, as you know, graduated from UCT with first-class honours in 1960, after which he proceeded to Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar and did his DPhil. And during these years at Oxford and subsequently a postdoc in Rockefeller University in New York, he worked and published with well-known Nobel laureates, Hans Krebs and Fritz Lippmann, for example. And at this point, one could say that the young Wieland Gevers had the world at his feet. He could easily have settled down in the first world and enjoyed the obvious benefits it had to offer his life and career. Instead, he chose to return to South Africa. The year was 1970, arguably one of the worst times in the history of our country. So many must have thought at the time that Wieland had finally lost his compass, if not his mind. Upon returning to South Africa, Professor Gevers set up a large and active MRC unit, and I have to mention this because it was at Stellenbosch University that he did that. Wieland, I spoke to one of your students, Professor Stephen Hoch, and asked him what was it like to have you as a teacher. This is what he said. And as you know, Professor Hoch rose to become the head of internal medicine at our Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences. This is what Professor Hoch had to say. Wieland is indeed exceptional. I was so very fortunate to have done my BSc honours with him. He spent many hours every week on my modest research efforts. At that stage, says Stephen, Wieland's Afrikaans was rather rudimentary. So every week he would learn a new Afrikaans word. For example, fantasties. And for that entire week, we would all be subjected to how fantasties the weather, the research, the cafeteria, food, just about everything else was. Next week, it was wonderlijk, and so forth. This not only underscored the man's determination, but endeared him to everyone. Wieland returned to UCT in 1978, but this did not diminish his loyalty towards Stellenbosch. I spoke to Claire Jeffrey, who worked with him when Wieland was setting up the Institute for Infectious Diseases and Molecular Medicine, and this is what she had to say. Wieland was always very complimentary about Stellenbosch's research track record and greatly admired the efforts taken by the newer generation of Marchi academics to relentlessly drive and deepen Stellenbosch's position as a research-intensive university. He always smiled when he spoke of Stellenbosch. At UCT, Professor Gevers made great strides as a scholar and teacher, eventually taking a broader leadership role as the DVC academic for a period of 12 years, a time that overlapped with South Africa's political transition. I was fortunate enough to be one of the medical students who came under the spell of this brilliant teacher, honored by UCT in 1981 through a Distinguished Teacher Award. And thinking back to this time, I remember a number of features that set Professor Gevers apart as a teacher, one of which was the genuine interest he took in his students regardless of color or creed. There were many acts of kindness that he showed me personally that I remember to this day and had a profound effect on me and my career subsequently. I would like to share one more story from one of Professor Gevers' students, postgrad students from UCT, around about the same period. His name was Anwar Mal. Anwar presented his inaugural lecture as Professor of Surgical Research at UCT in 2008 on an unusual topic, namely mucus, slippery, sticky, but sweet and satisfying. He began his lecture with the following words: "The details of how and why I came to be a mucus researcher is a story that will be told on another occasion. Suffice it to say that it was an unplanned visit to the University of Cape Town Medical School during a holiday in the Cape in 1979, and a chance meeting with Professor Wieland Gevers, a rare combination of gifted mind and a caring human being, then head of medical biochemistry, that changed the course of my life. My postgraduate career began under the watchful eye of Professor Gevers." Anwar Mal's words here echo the words of countless numbers of students and researchers who were inspired by or whose lives were touched in some way by Professor Gevers. Now, Professor Moll gave me permission to quote from his inaugural speech on one condition, that I tell another story which he has tried to tell for a long time but somehow never got around to it. He tells the story that Wieland usually did rounds in his lab in the evening when he expected to find his postgraduate students and postdocs to be hard at work. One evening, Professor Gevers walked in while Anwar was reading the newspaper. It happened to be the day John Lennon was shot. Startled by the sudden appearance of his professor, Anwar jumped up exclaiming, "Prof, they shot John Lennon." To which Wieland apparently calmly remarked, "Is there anything interesting in the paper today, Anwar?" Anwar says to this day he wonders if Professor Gevers ever knew who John Lennon was. Now, the significance of Professor Gevers' presence and persona obviously extends way beyond specific institutions, specific people, or a specific discipline. And we've already heard in the graduation, so I won't repeat all of that, that over a large number of years he has played a far-reaching leadership role in South African science and higher education. In fact, there is not a single part of either of these critical domains that has not been touched and significantly influenced by this man. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted that Stellenbosch University is honoring Professor Gevers today with an honorary doctorate to add to his many other international and national acknowledgements. He is a true South African, a great scientist, and a visionary and inspirational leader who has labored tirelessly to build a solid foundation for science and higher education in this country. Above all, he is a wonderful human being and a caring husband, father, and mentor who is greatly loved and respected by many. I invite you now to stand and enjoy this toast to Professor Gevers. Professor Gevers.
Professor Botman, His Excellency, and Dr. James Barnard, I am absolutely overwhelmed by the exaggerations you've just heard, because it was President Chisano who said that you mustn't exaggerate. Nevertheless, would like to thank Jimmy Volmick very much for those very kind words. What he didn't say is that he and I met in the medical school library when he was a third-year student, and I happened to be looking for a book, and I found the student in the library. We had a conversation which lasted 2 hours in busy times, and that has never been forgotten since then, that this was a way in which we got to know each other and our lives have intersected many times again, not least in my being very keen to help his faculty to grow in stature, further grow in stature, and to become a research giant. And recently he invited me to review the research process in the faculty, and we have just delivered our report. So thank you very much, Jimmy. I would like to join with my fellow graduates to congratulate all the people who achieved things today, that the doctorates, the many doctorates, and the university deserves a cheer for the 240 doctorates that were produced here in this last year. I must say that it's really quite strange to see the concentration that is encapsulated in the process you have for your graduating of doctoral students, which is that all that work, all that effort, all that research and reading of papers and doing of experiments and thinking and analyzing has to be captured in literally 1 or 2 minutes, with the supervisors desperately trying to find a way of summarizing all that under strict orders from their dean in 2 minutes. All that work. Can I just say, all that work is the very heart of everything. Because, as was mentioned, I had my first opportunity for professional academic growth here at this institution in the 1970s. And I must thank the university for that opportunity, the generosity, the setting in which I was able to develop that synthesis of enthusiastic teaching, of growth of people, of knowledge, of curiosity, and being willing to take every idea seriously wherever it came from. And that is the nub of the work that I have done in higher education and in South Africa's research system. It is that there's an interplay which resembles very much the interplay in a human body or an animal body between the individual cells. They are the units of function. Everything depends on what happens in a cell. And then there's the organism, the whole body. And the interplay between them is what determines the health and the prosperity and happiness of that person. So therefore, the individual PhD, the individual research group, the conditions under which people can work productively, that has to be protected in any policy that you have. And every consideration of the system must be geared towards making the cells happy, and in turn the conditions of the organism will then be successful as well. So really, I'm very grateful for the award of this unique distinction from a university which at the moment is growing in stature. It's spreading its wings in South Africa and across the continent. And I say that as an Ike, as we heard earlier, but I'm a Mati just as much, and today I guess I really am a Mati with my degree certificate. So thank you very much. I greatly appreciate all the honor, and I congratulate all of you on your achievements. Thank you very much.